Have you ever noticed it? That subtle tension, the unspoken battle, the invisible chess game that plays out between men and women every single day. It's not in the headlines. It's not on social media. And yet, it's everywhere. We call it the silent war, a war fought not with guns, not with fists, but with subtle power, manipulation, and influence. It's in the way conversations are steered, the way decisions are framed, the way emotions are weaponized, and most of the time, neither side even realizes they're part of it. This isn't about blaming men. It isn't about blaming women. It's about understanding the invisible forces that shape every interaction, every choice, and every relationship. The truth is, most people go through life completely blind to it. Blind to the strategies, blind to the motives, blind to the subtle psychological warfare that governs human behavior. But today, we're pulling back the veil. We're dissecting the strategies. We're exposing the hidden dynamics. By the end of this video, you won't just see the war, you'll understand it. You'll understand why arguments escalate without reason, why attraction sometimes turns into manipulation, and why even the closest relationships can feel like a battlefield. This is the world of silent influence, subtle control, and hidden agendas. And it's time to step inside. If you dare. At first glance, men and women seem to play very different games. On the surface, the differences are obvious: communication styles, priorities, and even emotional responses. But the truth runs far deeper. Beneath the surface, there's a complex network of psychological strategies designed to gain influence, secure advantage, and, ultimately, control outcomes. Men, historically and biologically, have been conditioned to display dominance and protect resources. Their strategies often rely on action, assertion, and, in subtle ways, emotional withdrawal. Men may retreat, become stoic, or create distance not out of cruelty but as a way to test boundaries, to assert independence, and to evaluate loyalty. Every decision, every movement carries a silent message: strength, stability, and power. Women, on the other hand, operate on a more nuanced plane of influence. Emotional intelligence, social awareness, and the ability to read hidden cues are their greatest weapons. Women often manipulate indirectly, not through overt confrontation, but through subtle shifts in attention, tone, and behavior. A glance, a question, or even a delayed response can communicate approval, disapproval, or desire. Every action carries a silent message, value, standards, and leverage. This is where the war becomes invisible. Neither side is necessarily conscious of the game they're playing. It's not premeditated. It's instinctual. Embedded in thousands of years of evolutionary psychology, men respond to perceived challenges with control. Women respond to perceived threats with influence. And the result? A constant, silent negotiation of power that neither side admits, but both sides feel. It manifests everywhere: in dating, in friendships, in workplaces, in marriages. Arguments flare not because anyone wants to fight, but because subtle moves and counter-moves trigger deep psychological responses. A simple disagreement can feel like a battlefield because, on some level, it is a battlefield, a silent war fought in strategies, reactions, and perception. Understanding these patterns is not about creating distrust. It's about awareness. Awareness is power. The moment you see the chessboard, you stop being a pawn. You begin to recognize when influence is being wielded, when manipulation is at play, and how to navigate the game without losing yourself. The silent war is a game everyone plays consciously or unconsciously. And the better you understand the rules, the better you can anticipate moves, protect your interests, and even gain the upper hand. The silent war isn't fought with overt battles or loud confrontations. It's fought with tactics so subtle that most people don't even recognize them. Yet, they shape every interaction, every decision, and every emotion in relationships between men and women. Understanding these tactics is key to seeing the battlefield clearly and avoiding becoming a pawn. One of the most common tactics is emotional leverage. Women often use this without thinking, and men respond instinctively. A slight withdrawal of affection, a carefully timed compliment, or a shift in attention can manipulate perception. It's not manipulation in the classic villainous sense, it's evolution, a psychological way of testing value, loyalty, and attention. Men, sensing a withdrawal or challenge, may respond with effort, reassurance, or assertiveness, sometimes escalating the tension unknowingly. Another tactic is control through information. Both sexes use selective disclosure to influence perception. Men may withhold feelings or intentions to maintain an upper hand or gauge reactions. Women, similarly, may share or conceal information strategically, shaping the narrative to their advantage. It's a silent negotiation of power, often invisible to outsiders, but intensely real for those involved. Then there's subtle competition. Men compete through status, achievement, and demonstration of competence. Women compete through social influence, perception, and relational positioning. This isn't about personal failure or cruelty, it's a fundamental, instinctive strategy embedded in human behavior. It explains why minor disagreements can escalate, why envy or comparison often surfaces, and why mutual understanding can feel elusive. Communication as a weapon is another layer of the war. Tone, pauses, emphasis, and choice of words carry hidden meaning. A man's blunt response may signal dominance. A woman's carefully crafted message may signal standards or test boundaries. Every conversation becomes a micro-battle, where misinterpretation is common, and the stakes are psychological rather than physical. Finally, there's the power of absence. Distance, whether emotional or physical, is a tactic both sexes use to evaluate commitment, attention, or interest. A man might withdraw to test loyalty. A woman might create space to gauge emotional investment. These moves are rarely intentional games, they are instinctive strategies that trigger psychological responses, keeping the war silent yet ongoing. What makes these tactics so dangerous is their subtlety. Most people respond without awareness, reacting instinctively instead of strategically. And that's exactly how the silent war continues under the radar, unnoticed, yet profoundly shaping the relationships, decisions, and emotions of everyone involved. By recognizing these tactics, you begin to see the patterns. You see the chessboard, not just the pieces. And once you understand the moves, you can protect yourself, navigate interactions consciously, and even influence the outcome without aggression or resentment. The silent war between men and women isn't a modern invention. It didn't start with social media, dating apps, or even modern society. It's as old as humanity itself. To understand why it persists, we need to look at evolution, psychology, and the unwritten rules that govern human interaction. From an evolutionary perspective, men and women developed different survival strategies. Men historically needed to compete for resources, status, and reproductive opportunities. Women, on the other hand, needed to secure reliable partners, protect offspring, and navigate complex social networks. These strategies weren't conscious, they were hardwired survival mechanisms. And what worked for survival thousands of years ago still echoes in the behaviors we see today. But evolution alone doesn't explain the persistence of the war. Society amplifies it. Cultural norms, gender expectations, and social roles create invisible pressure to perform, to conform, and to compete. Men are told to be strong, decisive, and independent. Women are told to be nurturing, perceptive, and socially aware. These expectations shape behavior, often unconsciously reinforcing the patterns of the silent war. Psychology adds another layer. Humans are wired for reciprocity, status, and influence. Every action, every reaction, is interpreted not just as communication, but as a measurement of value. Small gestures, who speaks first, who interrupts, who withholds attention, carry enormous psychological weight. Over time, these patterns create tension, misunderstandings, and subtle power struggles. Even in relationships founded on love or friendship, these dynamics are at play, quietly shaping interactions and perceptions. Then there's the philosophical dimension. Life is inherently a game of influence, power, and negotiation. Every human interaction is a negotiation of needs, desires, and boundaries. The silent war reflects a fundamental truth: relationships are rarely neutral. Even in harmony, there is strategy, intended or not. Recognizing this truth doesn't make life cynical, it makes it clearer. It allows individuals to navigate the world consciously, rather than being swept along by invisible currents of influence. Ultimately, the war persists because it's natural, ingrained, and invisible. It's maintained by instinct, reinforced by culture, and hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. Ignorance doesn't stop it. Awareness gives you the tools to understand it, predict it, and respond strategically. The silent war is not about enemies, it's about patterns. Patterns that, once seen, can empower rather than entrap. Understanding why it persists gives clarity. It allows you to see beyond emotion, beyond impulse, and beyond the noise. You begin to recognize moves, anticipate responses, and protect yourself from unconscious manipulation. You begin to see life and relationships not as random chaos, but as a game with rules that can be understood, mastered, and even used to your advantage. Awareness is the first step in navigating the silent war. Once you see the battlefield, the pieces, and the patterns, you stop being a passive participant. You begin to make conscious choices instead of reacting instinctively. The goal isn't to dominate or manipulate, it's to understand, protect, and influence wisely. The first strategy is observing without judgment. Notice patterns in communication, body language, and emotional responses. When someone withdraws, pauses, or shifts tone, don't jump to conclusions. Instead, recognize it as a signaler move on the chessboard. Understanding the intention behind a behavior allows you to respond strategically, rather than emotionally. Next is maintaining emotional equilibrium. One of the strongest weapons in the silent war is emotional reaction. React impulsively, and you play into the other person's strategy, even unknowingly. By staying calm, collected, and deliberate, you maintain control over your own position. This doesn't mean suppressing emotion, it means observing it, understanding it, and choosing when and how to respond. Another key strategy is strategic communication. Words, tone, timing, all of these carry weight. Avoid oversharing, overreacting, or creating unnecessary vulnerabilities. Instead, use clarity, consistency, and deliberate expression. Every statement becomes a tool to establish boundaries, assert values, or shift influence, without aggression or confrontation. Setting boundaries is critical. Both men and women respond instinctively to perceived control or leverage. By clearly defining what is acceptable and what is not, you protect yourself from manipulation and assert your presence. Boundaries create a stable framework in which interactions can occur consciously, rather than unconsciously following the hidden rules of the war. Finally, embrace strategic patience. Many battles are won not through immediate reaction, but through observation, timing, and understanding the flow of interaction. By waiting, you gather information, anticipate moves, and respond in a way that aligns with your long-term interests. Patience turns instinctual reactions into conscious strategy, giving you a quiet but decisive advantage. Navigating the silent war isn't about winning or losing in the traditional sense. It's about understanding patterns, anticipating moves, and protecting your psychological space. The more you recognize tactics, the more you can disengage from unnecessary conflict, influence outcomes subtly, and maintain your autonomy. The silent war is ongoing, invisible, and inevitable. But once you understand the rules, it stops being a trap. You become an observer, a strategist, and ultimately, the one who decides how the game unfolds. Awareness transforms vulnerability into power, chaos into clarity, and conflict into conscious navigation. In the end, the silent war between men and women isn't about hatred, rivalry, or destruction. It's about understanding. It's about awareness. It's about seeing the patterns that most people are too distracted or too emotional to notice. Men and women are not enemies. They are mirrors reflecting back to each other the hidden parts of human nature. Each side tests the other, challenges the other, exposes the other's weaknesses and strengths. The tension, the attraction, the conflict, it's all part of a deeper process, evolution. Psychological, emotional, and social evolution. When you start seeing this war for what it truly is, you stop taking things personally. You stop reacting blindly to every move or word. You begin to recognize that behind every argument, every silence, every subtle power play, there's a pattern designed to reveal something about control, validation, or fear. And in that awareness lies freedom. Freedom from manipulation, freedom from emotional traps, freedom from reacting to games you didn't even realize you were playing. You begin to understand that power in relationships, any relationship, is not about domination. It's about clarity. The one who sees the most, feels the least chaos. The one who observes rather than reacts always holds the advantage. So as you walk away from this video, remember this: the war isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to teach you, to sharpen your perception, to reveal the psychology behind attraction, communication, and control. Once you see it, you can never unsee it. That's the gift and the curse of awareness. If you found value in this exploration, share it with someone who still thinks relationships are random. Leave a comment with your thoughts, your experiences, or your own strategies in navigating this unspoken war, because understanding human nature isn't just knowledge, it's power. And in a world full of silent wars, power belongs to those who can see through the silence.